Okay, we are moving into part 2, which is going to be the new-ish part, and we're going to label the points around the circle. Before we do that, we need to do a quick review of our special right triangles, and what we're actually going to do is change our hypotenuse to 1. So we're going to shrink these triangles is what we're going to do. So these are our normal special right triangles, our 30, 60, 90, and our 45, 45, 90. Now normally, usually with the x, we're not going to do the x's. Normally our ratios we say is 1, hypotenuse is 2, the side opposite the 60 is the square root of 3. This is what we normally say. And then 45 is 1, 1, square root 2. Because the two sides opposite the 45 are going to be congruent. So these are our normal ratios that we use. Now, what we are going to do is shrink them. So similar figures, we can take those same ones and we can reduce them by half. The reason we're doing that, we want our hypotenuse to be 1, and you'll see why in a second. So if I divide everything by 2, similar triangles, triangles with the same measures for the angles, similar triangles, they shrink, but the proportions stay the same. So that's 1, that's square root 3 over 2, and that's 1/2. So instead of doing 1, 2, square root of 3, we're doing 1/2, 1, square root 3 over 2. Same thing over here. I'm going to divide everything through by the square root of 2 because I want my hypotenuse to be 1. So once I have a hypotenuse of 1, this is 1 over 2 square roots of 2, but yeah, we don't like that. It's got that irrational number in the denominator, so we do a quick rationalizing of the denominator. We get square root 2 over 2. Square root 2 over 2. So these are the triangles I'm going to use. You'll notice that second page that I sent you are these triangles. The size isn't exactly the same, but it's those triangles. So what I have done is I have cut those triangles out because we are going to use them on our right triangle. Okay, I cut mine out on color paper because I want to make sure that y'all are visualizing what's happening. The unit circle is so important. I don't want to just have it memorized. I want to understand it. All right, so here we go. We're going to start in our first quadrant here. So we're going to start here, and we're going to label points. And I'm actually going to start with our 0 and our 90 because those are pretty simple. I'm going to see if we can zoom in a little bit. There we go. Okay, so at 0, remember my radius is 1. So I went to the right 1. Let's actually use a different color just to make it stand out. Let's do this little maroonish color. I went to the right 1, up and down 0. So that right there, when I say point, I mean right there on the circle. My radius is 1, so I went to the right 1, up and down 0. Okay? This point here, I went left and right 0, and up 1. Because my radius is 1. Now, this is why we wanted our hypotenuse to be 1. Because if I put that triangle right there and match that 30-degree angle up, I'm going to use degrees instead of radians because I think most of us understand it a little bit better just because we're more used to it. So when I line that up, look at what happens there. My radius is 1, it matches up perfect. And what that allows me to do is say, to get to this point right here, I went to the right, square root 3 over 2, and up 1/2. So that's that point. Okay? For the 60, nope, sorry, 45. You'll notice I'm color coordinated here except for my 45s. The yellow highlighter just wasn't dark enough. You couldn't really see it. So again, I wanted my hypotenuse of 1 because it lines up there with the radius, which means to get to this point right here, I went to the right, square root 2 over 2, and up square root 2 over 2. my 60 degree. Wanted my hypotenuse to be 1, so it lined up with my radius there. I went to the right 1/2 and up square root 3 over 2. So this point right here is 1/2 square root 3 over 2. Okay? So far, I have those 3 values, those 3 points. Put my pen down. Those 3 points there. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing in the second quadrant. So I'm just going to set these to the side so they're out of my way. And we're going to go into the second quadrant. So in the second quadrant, I'm going to start with my 30. See, it still lines up. I have a hypotenuse of 1, a radius of 1, so that matches up perfectly. Now notice this time, I'm going to the left square root 3 over 2 and up 1/2. That makes my x coordinate negative. Make sure you see that negative there. Should have left us a little more room. For the 45, lining up here, the hypotenuse of 1, I'm going to the left square root 2 over 2 and up square root 2 over 2. So my x is negative. And then for my 60 degree, the hypotenuse lines up with the radius to the left 1/2 and up square root 3 over 2. Okay, now let's go back and take a look. So this is quadrant 1. It shouldn't surprise you that in quadrant 1, my x and my y are both positive, because I'm going to the right and up. This is quadrant 2. It shouldn't surprise you that in quadrant 2, my x is negative and my y is positive. So that gives me my second little group of triangles there. Okay, set those to the side. Third quadrant. Let's label our pi. For pi, for this point here, and again, remember what I'm doing is that point right there on the circle. All right, so for pi, I went to the left 1, up and down 0. Continuing around. For my 30-degree reference angle, which lines up with 210, I'm going to the left square root 3 over 2, down 1/2. That means this time they're both negative. So in quadrant 3, I'm going left and down. They are both negative. I'm going to make that super clear. Really probably should have left a little more room there. For the 45 degree, I think you've got it by now, but I'm going to still demonstrate just in case. The radius and the hypotenuse are lining up. Left square root 2 over 2, down square root 2 over 2. So negative square root 2 over 2, negative square root 2 over 2. And then for the 60 degree, left 1/2, down square root 3 over 2. So that gives us our fourth little group, or third rather, little grouping there. Okay? And then the fourth quadrant, final quadrant here. And we can go ahead and say in the fourth quadrant, look what's going to happen in the fourth quadrant. I'm going to go to the right. That's a funky looking 4, isn't it? IV. Going to go to the right and down. So x is going to be positive, y is going to be negative. So starting here, I'm going to the right, square root 3 over 2, and I'm going down 1/2. For the 45, 45, 90. Right square root of 2 over 2, down square root of 2 over 2. So positive, negative. And then for the 60, right 1/2, down square root 3 over 2. That's a negative. Okay, so again, here is what we end up with. Zooming back out. We still haven't talked about why I care about those points. We're going to do that in the next video. But I want to put these here because I want you to see how cool it looks. And of course I've got my fourth quarter flipped, so my colors aren't matching up. Can't have that. It's got to be pretty. So that's what we have there. Okay. The next video we'll talk about why we care about those points, what they mean to us, and then we'll have one, maybe 2 more videos talking about how we use this thing, this unit circle.